Hey everybody, welcome back to Gen Zen on Tune Up Tuesday. I'm Jennifer Clark here in Ottawa, here with you on a Facebook Live show called Gen Zen TV. We're putting the soul back into solutions, one conversation, one question, one call at a time. I'm here with my guest, Sharon Rayment from Chatham, Ontario. Had the pleasure of being on the same stage as her on Women's Day on last Thursday, and heard her speech and was profoundly affected by her wonderful story. She's an author, a speaker, a resilience coach, an equestrian, a priest, a shaman, a wise woman, and a redhead. And how can you not like redheads? She's got a fantastic story about falling off her horse, waking up with a Scottish accent, and forever having her life changed. She wrote her book, Falling into the Rhythm of Life, Life Lessons Straight from the Horse's Mouth. Welcome to the show, Sharon.
Well, thank you very much, Jennifer. It's fantastic.
So tell us, like, I've heard the story, but it's the story that you need to sort of cultivate for our viewers today, simply because it's fantastic and unique. And I actually talked to your daughter about it while you were on stage, and I kept saying, is she serious? Is she serious? And your daughter was like nodding her head, yes. So do tell us about that fateful day when you went for the first time in 7 years to the barn without a helmet.
Right. Oh, well, it's very true. No helmet that day, which is really a bizarre thing. We were running an end of the week camp for some little girls that had been there horseback riding during the week, and their parents had arrived to see the show. I decided to take my horse Malakai for a wee bit of a ride down to the other side of the arena and then back again. Unfortunately, without that helmet on, I had a cowboy hat and it blew off. Hit Malakai in the back end and whoosh, we were off. He unseated me over to the left, and when we got down to the end where the little girls were, he went to the right and I went to the left. Hit my head, bounced back up, I guess, and knocked myself out on the second hit. So then, nothing embarrassing about this, right, Jen? Being taken off to hospital. Yes, off to hospital in front of all these people. And I was told that I had a mild concussion. As I said, it just didn't feel like a mild concussion. The lights were still bright. You know, they were so bright when I came out into the waiting room when I was discharged. And the sounds were amplified. Being around people kind of made me anxious. And so during the recovery time, we came to find out that I have an acquired brain injury. And a diagnosis was given as completely disabled. And that's because the executive functioning of the brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, was down to less than 10th of a percentile to function. Now, about 10 days after the accident, I awoke one morning unable to speak. And back I go to hospital. I was told at that point that I had bruising all over the left side of the brain and that I should rest. Finally given the message. When I started to speak again, I stuttered and I couldn't process the words together, which is how we knew about the executive functioning piece as well. And I went into speech therapy. When the speech therapist, about 3 weeks into it, said to me, Sharon, did you have an accent before? And I said, no. And she said, well, you surely do now. So I'm one of 60 people in the world that has a foreign accent as a result of an acquired brain injury.
Wow. This is the point where I, at the speaker's table, turn to your daughter and say, is she kidding? Or is like, because you sound like a native of Scotland. Like, you know, to me as a Canadian, I'm just hearing you found out later, actually, when you were in Scotland, it's Inverness. So I bet you, you know, people there think you're a born and bred Scots woman. So how did that make you feel having such, I mean, first of all, you're a very high functioning entrepreneur. You run your barn, you have, you know, your books, you're speaking, you've been doing this. This is kind of your thing for a very long time. First of all, waking up and not being able to function, that's very destabilizing. I mean, I had that when I had my snowboarding accident. It's very humbling when you can't wash your own hair, take your underwear off to pee, you know, like put on a bra, like really simple things that you don't realize are affected and infected when you're injured. How did you feel at that point? This was way before you even realized you were a completely different person when you woke up Scottish.
That's right. That's right. You know, after the accident and when I said about the concussion itself, I knew it had to be more than a minor concussion, and it really did. It changed completely who I was. I was a very left-brain, analytical person, and I became a lot more emotional, sensing and feeling of other people's emotions, which at the time I didn't realize. And then suddenly, you know, I'm starting to feel what other people are feeling around me, which was completely different. And yes, I was unable to do anything that I had done before. The speaking had been something I'd done as a pastor, you know, on Sundays and out in the community. And I was unable to do any of that. The functioning had decreased so dramatically. And I just wanted to stay in my dark room, to be honest. And I became, as time went by, I became more and more depressed, which of course made it harder and harder to go out.
So how did your family, you were raising a family, you had several businesses or at least lots of tribe community client students, horses to take care of, you know, animals and kids don't ever quit, right? Like there is no off switch when you have to take care of a live being. So how did they, were they afraid? I mean, I think a lot of people understand that there's the person that's had the event, but then there is a fallout with the entire family and relationships and not knowing how to support. How do you think your family reacted to this sort of big event in their world?
I can tell you that my husband was 100%. He was just fantastic. How things got done, I don't know, to be honest. It was just kind of a blur. I remember writing the book and the editor asking me, you know, you write that you fell on the Friday and then Monday you went back to work. So what happened on the weekend?
Right.
And I said, I have no idea. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the part in the first 6 months is a blur to me. My memories of it, a lot of sleeping, a lot of headaches, a lot of pain. I tried to go back to work, but I, you know, even to this day, you know, for the people that have had concussions is the big piece. So I felt bad that I was unable to go out with my kids to do a lot of the activities that perhaps I wanted to do. You know, and now I've actually gone back and apologized to both my girls and saying, you know, I mean, I didn't create the accident for sure, but you know, just to be able to say, you know, these are pieces. And I think, to be honest, we've got a stronger relationship than we would have if I'd continued on the same path.
Well, I know your daughter had a look of pride when she saw you on stage, and you really nailed your part on the Women's Day stage. So, you know, you couldn't tell you were anyway disabled before. And again, you sound like a native Scotswoman. So if you didn't tell that story, no one would have noticed. So it's interesting how you've gone from there to here. But I'd like to know, when you have this life-altered event, your voice changed. And as I say that, my own voice is going to give me a bit of a kick. So bear with me. How did that affect you? Because it's, to me, a part of your identity. And so viscerally, like, you have an accent from another land. It's not just like you have a slight, you know, lilt or change in your tone. You're completely different. So how did that feel, hearing yourself speak with someone else's sound?
To be honest, initially when the speech therapist said that, I didn't realize I even had it, because I continued to stutter and have problems processing words for about 9 months. It wasn't until I went to a horse event that I started actually putting words back together again. It was pretty scary, to be honest. It wasn't so much the accent, it was all of the concussion symptoms. Right. And then it became the accent when I went to Scotland and travelled up into Inverness and was looking for that bed and breakfast. And the lady said, you know, yeah, can you give me directions? And she said, well, darling, surely you know how to get here. Your accent tells me you're from Inverness, right?
Right.
And finding that and being in Scotland was probably an awakening moment for me, especially when we travelled over to the Isle of Iona.
Yes.
It seemed to really open more for me. And
well, you know why, right? Very different, right? You know, Mary Magdalene, the Marian line there. the Atlantean line there. Iona is one of the hot spots. So I wanted to say this too, because I can on my show. This is a weird show, so I get to do whatever I want. I actually got a sense when I was, listening to you speak at the event we were both at, that this was part of your life plan you actually jumped timelines. And it's like you went back. I think this is a voice of your past. I think this is a past life voice that's of you. This is you, another version of you. And that travel to that physical land where this voice is from, which is also where the Marian line is. And you told me you have a very strong interest in Mary Magdalene and the Rose line and, the temple at Chartres. I actually think you really have to sort of zone in on that area of the world for your personal and spiritual growth that will add more to the awareness of why the switch had to flick so bad. Do you understand? And I also got a really good sense that your horse knew that was going to happen, and that the horses are connected to Bridget, as you know. Bridget, the goddess, who is Gaelic, Celtic, earth magic, whatever. She's Saint Bridget to a Catholic, she's Gaelic or Avalonian to somebody else. But Bridget's energy was around the horse, and I get a sense, again, it's a past life moving into a Magdalene line. I'm moving into the Marian speaking stuff. So I'm really interested in you exploring this and seeing how your writing changes, because I get where you're at now as a resilience coach, speaker.
Yes.
But I do actually hear the voice taking you on another more deepening spiritual path. And if I may add my 2 cents, to your understanding of it all, did you have any sense that this was on purpose?
The interesting piece when you bring up Malakai, who is my horse, and of course his name is...
look at his name.
Yeah, exactly. Messenger of God, right? Yes. And when I had started to go to work with the horses and then bring back more of a spiritual, and of course the Celtic way to say it is Anamkara, yes. Right? With the horses as soul friends rather than just yes. What we call perhaps beasts of burdens, or those that we're riding and treating in that manner. One of the ladies came back and she said to me after, she said, Malakai quite clearly was intentionally having you fall.
Yes.
Yes. And she said he didn't expect you to fall quite so hard,
yep.
But he needed to wake you up.
Yeah. Boom.
And yes. And I do believe that that's very true. I believe that I'm going to be going back to Iona in a different manner, in a different journey. I believe it's going to be very intentional and very connecting to those kinds of things. Following Mary through France, and over to the Isles. So, yeah. And
yeah,
of course,
look forward to the book, because you're a fabulous book author. You already connect people to wisdom teachings and understandings. I just get it's more esoteric. It's going to be more spiritual than technical or practical. Tell us about your handout. I had it here, and then I think I filed it away. You gave out this wonderful sort of replica of the Rose Labyrinth. Can you talk
yes.
about it? Do you have a labyrinth on your property? I don't know if I missed that part. Talk about why it's important. Oh, there it is.
There's the labyrinth. This is the one that we've actually made. My daughter's boyfriend cut this out of steel for us. And so what's really nice about it is that you just put it right upon your hand to be able to use it.
Yeah.
I use it pretty well every day in prayer, and so, kind of hold it like this, and it's prayer. And there's only one path, of course, into the center, yes. And one path back out again. In the center, I think, is the point that we were referring to, which is the Rose of Sharon,
yeah.
But also representative of Mary Magdalene. Mm-hmm. And so in the center, these 6 petals.
Pull it up a bit. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
There's the 6 petals in it. And of course, it's harder because it's clear through. Yeah. But the 6 petals starting over here, the very first one is for mineral, plants, animals, mm-hmm. human, angelic, and divine realms.
Right.
I believe really and truly that the labyrinth we have on the farm, which you were referring to, it has 10,000 bricks. just a small one, 52 feet. And, you know, the center of it, it's about a half mile into the center and back out again.
Wow.
But I really believe that it's a vortex of prayer. We have the hospital ambulance that comes from Chatham and goes right over the top of our place to London. And for ages, you know, I don't walk it as much as I use this one, because this one, you know, it's just handy every day. It's right here. It's snowing like crazy. I'm not going outside. So this is the one that I will use for that, right, instead. But I believe that as the ambulance comes over, as people come near, that there's prayer that's given out to all. Right.
It's like creating the flow, you know, like in energy medicine, we do the chokure, the spiral, or you do it this way. I mean, there's different traditions that say different things, but that's actually what it's doing as well. And if you look at it from a shamanic standpoint, the 6 plus the center is 7, the 7 directions, you know. There's many parables. The rose has been used in all of the traditions in so many ways. For you, how has this helped, this practice, like using a mini labyrinth or the labyrinth, helped you move through this adversity? Because again, you got taken down. You got literally taken off, taken down, taken out, and then kind of put back together in a way that you weren't quite expecting, which takes a lot of, inner strength and for me, a sense of faith in the greater.
Yeah, you know, at first I didn't like it that much, to be honest. Yeah, I was actually pretty angry about the whole thing, just to let you know. Being unable to make decisions, solve problems, being able to run businesses. I ran, 2 businesses, the Good Life Fitness Club for women here in Chatham. And I, of course, had the horse farm with the kids, and I was working as a pastor. Like, I was really busy and doing. And my brain told me that that was the best thing that you could do. And so did society, right? I mean, we that now, as I joined the group of more soul and, right, that sensing group and being able to be much more sensitive to spirit and to things, I think gives me an awareness there. And so I think everything and everyone that I connect with is a lot deeper than it ever had been previous. I said to my husband, I don't even know who that person was. Right. I don't know how he lived with me, for goodness sake, right? Because I was crazy, busy and doing. And now, even coming back from the conference, the presentation and the drive was big. I took Sunday and just slept in, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, first time I'd had so many hours of sleep. Previously, I would never have done that. Yeah. So it's been an adaptation. It's trying to just, adapt to everything that's happening.
So do you ever talk to Malakai and get an answer back?
Yes. Pretty well all the time when I go intentionally to ask him.
Yeah. And so I want you to write the book about straight from the horse's mouth, though. Like Malakai, messages from Malakai. Again, hearing this story again, second time, it's hard for me being so intuitive, not, tapping into some of the elements or characters in the story. And I tell you, that horse is pretty evolved.
Oh, yes.
There was a very good series of books. Forgive me, I'm blanking out on the author. It'll come to me. It was called The Story of B. Daniel Quinn. Thank you, Daniel Quinn. So his premise is a trilogy about an enlightened gorilla talking to the world and humanity about how they're not getting it, that they think they're the highest form of life on the planet. And he meets one guy, he wants to help change the world. Then he meets another person. And at the end, the trilogy ends with a child. And the gorilla's talking to this child saying, are you going to hear us? Are you going to understand your role? Powerful trilogy. Please research it. The Story of B by Dan Quinn. It's an older series, but certainly I think it has an interesting overview for you and how you and Malakai, through Malakai's connection to the horses, the herds, to the quantum, how he interprets, life, the universe, and everything. I actually get that you really can now start voicing that for him and typing, because his hooves don't type very well. that you could actually put that on paper, and that would be a hugely powerful gift. Horses are so powerful. I mean, there's very few people I know that if they're afraid of the horse, they're afraid of its power. Do you understand its size? They're not afraid of the horse. It's just because it's bigger usually. How do people react to your horses, Malakai, or horses in general when you first introduce them?
You know, a lot of people will stand back and not want to get very close. And so anytime I introduce them to the horses, I usually have the horses in a stall, and we do kind of a meditation, a connection, and a heart connection, which is, you know, how they kind of go into the weekend and being able to work with them. At the very end of the weekend, of course, everyone starts to flow, and horses start to choose the people, which is really how the horses are chosen. It's nothing I do. I just take the horse that comes to the gate, and then I share that with people. And when they go into the ram pen on the very last day, it's a reflection, and they connect one-on-one by heart to the horse and listen for those messages. And I say I'm not a horse whisperer, but a horse listener from Malakai, and, you know, sharing those messages that he has. He really is, you know. I had someone say to me, Sharon, I loved your book. The first part tells your story, and it's beautiful. You do a great job. And he said, well, when I got to the second part, it was a little bit harder as we went through, and I had to take a little bit more time. And I said, well, of course it was harder in the second part. They're the ones with the wisdom, the horses. They wrote the second part. And it's true. Right?
Yeah. And I think if you change your demographic, because my tribe would get the horse thing first, like would, you know, drive right into it. And I think people are awakening so quickly that, you know, they're absorbing it now. They're really sort of opening and softening. And I just get that that's the sense of you, is you're just really, you know, cracking open and having this wonderful, all the wisdom teachings now are allowed to pour through you. The book, Falling into the Rhythm of Life. What would it help people with? Why do you want someone to pick it up? And what was the intention behind writing it?
Part of the intention of writing it was to help people become more aware of being present in the present moment. And it's difficult in the life that we lead, you know, the phones and the text and the emails and everything that we have. And I think we're becoming more disconnected, even though we're so connected by this, right? And so a lot of the things that are through that book are ways to just, you know, take a pause, be present, be aware with where you are, who you're with, and what you're doing, which, you know, you can't be with a 1,200-pound horse and not be aware, right? And those are the messages that they've given me. But Midnight, which is my daughter Megan's horse, one day I answered the phone in the ram pen, you know, while I'm out with them. And it didn't take him a second to give me a push and say, you know, come on, let's be present. Exactly. Can you drop that? You know, I mean, I actually scooted under the fence because he was pushing and pushing. And I was like, okay. And so they've really taught me that even though we're present, Malakai said to me, literally, you humans are so out of your minds. We're out of our minds, and we don't get that connection. And, you know, he really did tell me, Jen, to go out into the world to share their stories.
Yes.
Yeah, you see, I was in the ram pen with him, and I had 12 ladies that were very, very spiritual, and they had come for a retreat, and we were doing the reflections. And just before they came, Malakai started doing a head tossing syndrome.
Okay.
And that would be that his nose would kind of twitch and then his head would shoot up. And so I said to the ladies, you know, we can't use him today because this, you know, if his head tossed and you were there, it might hurt you.
Yeah.
And so at the end of it, I had done 12 reflections with the ladies. We debriefed everything. And I said to them, would you do me the honor of letting me do a session with Malakai? Which I did. And when I would get close to Malakai, his head would toss. When I would move away from Malakai, he would stand still.
Right.
And so all of them said to me, you know, he wants you to go out there.
Yep.
And he said to me, go out and speak to the many, but bring back the few.
Hey, sister, I'm coming. I'm coming. So tell us where your farm is and how people from our community, you're in Chatham, Ontario, can come out and visit with you or do retreats. Tell us about your farm.
Well, we are located in Chatham, and so we're a wee bit of a distance from Ottawa, but I made the trip. You folks can too.
We have wheels.
Yeah, get the wheels, bring the bus. That's what we need, right? So in June, and isn't this funny? I'll find it, sorry. In June, the second week in June, I believe it is, the 8th and 9th, I am doing a retreat here. And I should have looked this up before, Jen, and known the truth.
Okay, we can put it up later.
Oh, I can too. The 8th and 9th. It's a Saturday, Sunday of June. And when people arrive, and I may even go into the Friday night, because I like people to arrive that night and just hang out with the horses and have a little campfire and just get to know, each other a little bit. And Saturday and Sunday is about meditation with the horses and meeting them, right? So doing some energy work with them, being able to sense and to feel, which over that weekend becomes deeper and deeper and deeper. And someday you conclude with that piece where you do a reflection where they're speaking, to you. And it's so funny because I always say to people, I don't watch you, I watch the horse, right? I listen to what the horse says. And by the end of the weekend, everybody's hearing, these conversations. As you say, it's easy to be able to say on your channel.
I can say it.
You can say it. And the other piece is that, of course, people walk the labyrinth.
Nice. Do they stay on site, Sharon? Like, do you have accommodations on site, or is there somewhere local? Oh, we just lost Sharon's feed, I think. She's in a remote location during a snowstorm right now, and we were a little concerned about her internet feed because she was getting some sort of internet distortion. So it looks like we may have lost her for a bit. What I'll try to do is make sure that we give out the information about Sharon's retreat. Her website, though, is SharonCampbellRayment.com. She's got tons of YouTube videos and website links and opportunities for all of us to connect with her. Of course, her book, Following Within the Rhythm of Life, Life Lessons from a Horse. I really, really hope she, does write that book with Malakai. I know it's something that I would voraciously read. I actually train people on how to heal horses. And I had the privilege of several times working at horse farms here in the Ottawa area. I'm not a horse person. I'm not an animal person. I grew up in the city. And I know the first time I approached, the client, the horse, when I was teaching in Ashton, it was majestic. It was beautiful. And it's really intimidating because the horse's head's quite big, the body. And at the end of the treatment, the horse sat down, like buckled herself. And the trainer was just amazed that I could, with my hands only, and I wasn't even touching the horse, able to put the horse down. She was so relaxed. She was yawning. Horses love the energy. Of course, people love horses and their energy. So I encourage you to reach out to Sharon if you can with her books or watch some of her YouTube videos because it's a fascinating experience. And I actually am very interested in that June retreat. Because there's something very majestic. There's something very holy. The Aboriginals think they're, ancestors. The Celtic traditions think they're the unicorns that went away in the land of magic and left the horses as their representatives. And when the horses tell the unicorns it's time to come back, that the world of magic can come back to the world. That's one of the stories that I love the most. I'm sorry that we've lost Sharon, but hopefully we went through most of the interview anyway with her and her feed. Do check out her website, SharonCampbellRayment.com, and please check out her wonderful books. She's got many, but of course, the one we're talking about was Falling into the Rhythm of Life, Life Lessons from the Horse's Mouth. And thanks to everyone who was watching. I saw your comments. I just didn't want to interrupt Sharon. So thank you, Michelle. Glad you were at the Women in Business event. Thanks, Jen and Maureen, and all the comments that came through. Appreciate it every week. We're here next week. Because March is a little funny week, I'm kind of in doing some interviews. So it may be interview day next week, and it may be question and answer. So I haven't quite decided yet. So, I'm going to take some latitude and decide later on in the week. Have a great week. Snowing in Ottawa. I'm over it. I can't wait for the spring. The new moon is on the 17th, and the spring equinox is on the 20th. If you're in Ottawa, please come out to my spring equinox celebration Thursday, March 22nd at the Prince of Wales Manor in Barhaven near Manotick from 7 to 9. We're doing a very special spring activation and energetic experience. For those of you who did attend the Women in Business Conference, it's something similar, just a little longer and a little more intense. So thanks again for Rebecca. Thanks to our guest Sharon. Thanks for you tuning in. Remember, when it's dark outside, keep the light on. See you next time.